we were talking about before, it begins at home. Elaborate on that more, please.
Like, I don't think like people, Indians living in America, I don't think they think such a thing anymore, like any hateness against Pakistan or something like that. No, why? Because as time passes, people get more educated. They get to know what's right, what's wrong, and at that time, people didn't know that. And after like a decade, after 1947, after a decade, people still were really angry for what happened because the wound was still fresh and people were still wondering. But now, I don't think people think anymore like that, especially the young generation, because they know what's right, what's wrong, and they just want to move forward. And I don't think in America, there's still a lot of people back in India and Pakistan who think like have a lot of hateness for both each other, but not here. Like, I've seen so many good Indians who have helped me. Like, I've received help from more Indians, less Pakistanis. Not that I'm saying Pakistan are not good, but they're good, but I've received more help from Indians.
Because here, when we come here, we are Americans.
Yeah.
We don't think each other as Indian or Pakistani.
Here, everyone is human. Like, humans first, religion later. That's the best part about America.
If you had obviously you are Pakistani.
Yeah.
If you have a Indian girlfriend.
Yeah, I would not mind. If she's beautiful, why would I
How
mind?
about your parents?
No, they would never. They would never. Because I tell you, this is a new generation.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure. Like, if she's beautiful, if she's amazing, like, she's like the perfect wife material or girlfriend material, they won't think she's Indian or anything.
How about you, Akash?
My parents would be the same way. However, I would say that although this is the trend in America, right, that, you know, as the generations are getting, you know, more and more into the future, this is becoming less and less of an issue. There is still that feeling of, you know, protectiveness, I guess would be the best word. For instance, one of my friends in high school, she has, you know, a boyfriend who is not, she's Indian and her boyfriend is American, he's, you know, white. And her parents would not be okay with that. She actually has to, you know, kind of hide him a little bit from them. And so there is still the, you know, orthodox mentality in some pockets of America. But for the most part, I definitely agree that, you know, like for instance, my parents, his parents would be totally okay.
Or mine?
Oh, I know my parents. I mean, some of my family members, you know, they've married Indians, but it's not that they've married. The world is changing now. We're
I
not
tell you something. Even though we like to think that way, but the parents like to think differently. And it's not the reason is religion. It could be many other things. Anyway, but we are not going there. And as we are talking about 1947, we are here to discuss what happened that time and what was the impact of being a 10-year-old if you witnessed that. I want you to tell each one very briefly, if you witnessed 1947 and you were 10 years old, and today you were 80, what would you feel?
That would have been terrible. I mean, the trauma stays forever. It stays in your mind, doesn't get out. So it would have been terrible to live with that horrible scenes and, you know, horrific stuff. So it would have been absolutely devastating.
Akash?
Yeah, if I lost my sister or one of my parents or some of my closest friends, like that, I would, like, you know, a lot of people do, remember Indian independence not as this great political movement of, you know, freedom, but I would just mourn for the loss of people who, you know, were central to my life.
What if you did not lose anybody, you just witnessed that kind of a madness?
So then it would be more just like chaos, really. Like, why? Like, what? I would still, I mean, I think my whole life, or like a great part of my life, would be just trying to understand how this wild situation could have erupted and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again, because it's still happening in the world. There's still places where we need to resolve these types of tensions, and I think that would be, you know, how I would try my best to channel it positively as opposed to just breaking down.
Well, I must congratulate you, Akash, by taking the first step, co-writing the book Beyond Milestone with Surendra Mitraji, with your grandfather, that which really shares people the agony and the sadness of what happened that time. So you have taken that step.
Through literature, through telling these stories, through pitching them in, you know, analytical ways that don't just, you know, present the facts like a lot of history books do, but really get into the emotionality of it and get into the philosophy of it. Hopefully we can make sure that people are aware of these types of things and that they are able to prevent it in the future.
How each one of you will pay tribute, kind of, you know, like like I will say, Rab sabnu mat dave. May God bless wisdom to everyone in all circumstances to do the right thing. If you were to pay a tribute, kind of your homage to that partition of August 1947, what would you say?
For the people who like lost their
If
lives.
you were to pay the homage,
For
in
the
briefly,
people.
2 lines, 3 lines.
Well, I would make all the people proud. I would like make sure their sacrifice didn't go in waste. I would make them proud by changing what happened that time.
I would say that that was a very dark part of history in a lot of ways. But moving forward, we see that now. Look at India and look at Pakistan, some of the strongest economies, most rapidly growing regions on the earth, and there's still a lot of problems with the countries. Right, independence didn't solve everything. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of poverty.
No, we are not going there.
But we're not going there.
We're not
Exactly.
going there.
But this moment in 1947 can really be remembered as there was a lot of bad that happened, but let's look forward, let's keep moving, and let's try to make sure that in modern day we can prosper as much as we can.
You know what? I would look a little bit before 1940. Say, hey, look, we were one before. Why can't we live in peace now again? What happened was bad, but let's hey, look, we used to live 2 days ago. We August 10th, 1947, we were friends, and August 14th, we wanted to kill each other. So hey, look, we can take lessons from the past. What happened was bad, but that was bad part of our history, and let's move forward. And
What you think can be done for the future to not to nurture this kind of a hatred between Hindus, Muslims, and Pakistanis, Indians? What do you think can be done for the future?
I think people should be educated about like what's right, and I don't think this sort of thing will happen again because people know now it's not the same time, it's not the same all time. And I mean, the best thing that we can do to educate people about what's right through media. Media is the best source to give people the knowledge, like not to do such a thing again. And I think that's what media has been doing. Like, media has been doing the right stuff and the wrong stuff at the same time. Like the movies, like I've seen so many Pakistani stars going to India, casting in their movies, and that's what we feel really proud. We're really happy about India, and we're not jealous or something like why did you go there? No, it's not like that. We are happy to see that.
So open your heart, be open to everybody.
Yeah,
That's how we can stop for the future?
Yeah, and I think the best way to achieve that maybe is through what we've kind of done today, integration, right? Like I've met these 2 wonderful gentlemen, and in our experiences in America, like there's a lot of meeting people from different ethnicities, from different cultures, from different religions, and once they become one of your friends, once you love them, you start to really appreciate the culture as a whole. And I think that's a big thing that if it could start happening more in India and Pakistan, especially from a young age, where people meet other children, other teenagers, and they get along, they play cricket together, that's sort of the way to really unite and recognize, we're all human. It's not like, you're an American, you're an Indian, you're a Pakistani, you're from this part. Like, no, we all have similar tastes in music, sports, culture, etc.
So I would say, as I always said that, we can all agree that sometime we can disagree,
Yeah.
you're right.
but we still all will be loving to each other. And I'm so happy that even through media even, we are telling our audience, love everybody. And at the same time, enjoy the Independence Day with a independence from your own dark side. That's what we should be getting the independence from. Our small thinking, our hatred, our narrow thinking, our fundamental orthodox beliefs. So those are the kind of things we should get the freedom from. So we can toast to the freedoms of everybody today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And please, the audience, take this love further and further and further so we never witness again 1947 of the killing and all those things what happened that time. Thank you. were talking earlier, so it is not the religion, it wasn't the politics in 1947, why people killed people, why raped, all those things, terrible things happened. Of course, we were not there to get into their mind why a Muslim person kills another Hindu, takes his property, and at the same time another Muslim person saves the another Hindu person. And the vice versa. Hindus also did the same thing. So if it's not the religion, if it's not the politics, let's just imagine, what do you think happened that time?
The same thing that's happening today. I mean, you go to India or Pakistan, I'm pretty sure in India there's people, Hindus killing Hindus, and in Pakistan, same thing, Muslims definitely killing Muslims. So it's certain people, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to say they're just bad, but you know, under the circumstances and what they've been brainwashed, and again, talking about back in that day, revenge, right? You were told that, hey, the Hindus killed your family, they killed your father, you need to join us. And that same thing's happening today. So I don't think it has anything to do with religion, just certain people feed different, you know, feed other people different things, and that's what's going on, and that's what happened that day.
I think it's a big combination of the factors. I mean, I agree in the sense that like there are certain individuals who break the, you know, the generalities, but like sometimes the religious communities and the political communities that people are a part of are the ones sort of fostering this attitude of, you know, the Muslims are, you know, this whole category of people and they're all bad and they all killed your family, where really it was just, you know, an individual or a few individuals did something harmful. And oftentimes, you know, it could be for self-interest, it could be, you know, someone wants property and they see this as an opportunity to get something. Or it could be something, you know, emotional where it's like they want revenge for something. And then oftentimes it could be someone genuinely believing, as we see in the modern world sometimes, that their God does want them to do something that, you know, really breaks our scheme of morality, but to them it makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't just happen in like countries like India and Pakistan. I mean, you see it all over the world, like, you know, Israel and Palestine are two regions that are currently in a lot of conflict, and just around the world there's a lot of, you know, religiously motivated, but not so much like in the text of the religion, but just the community itself has become, you know, unwilling to compromise or unwilling to listen to the other side.
How religious are you guys? How religious are you?
Very, very religious. Like, I pray all the time, I believe in God and everything. But for me, like, they were talking why Pakistan and India, why they don't have good relations. I don't think this is the Hindu or Muslim, this is not religious anything. I think there's like a natural hateness between Pakistan and India. I don't know why. Who created that? How did I create? Like, this is not Hindu and Muslim. This is just Pakistan and India. Like, whatever, when it comes to Pakistan and India, there could be some kind of natural hateness from Pakistan and from India. Like during a cricket match, like if there is a Muslim player in the India team, we will not cheer for him. Why? Because in Indian, we don't think of him as a Muslim. And how did this create? How did this happen? We never know. So this is definitely not religion. It's like something between the name of Pakistan and the name of India. Like whatever these two names come together, there's going to be some sort of hateness.
What do you think?
No, I definitely agree, but you know what? I think the older generations feel like that. On the show last week, those people witnessed it. They heard, you know, they were there, and you know what? I think they told their kids this is what happened. So, but the new generation now, we could care less about that stuff. We just want to move forward.
Of course.
I mean, you know, come on. How long are we gonna fight for? Let's play cricket and let's have fun. You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier to say when it's not our relatives. It's like, you know, 4 generations or 3 generations back, where, you know.
Yeah, so we should think about the future. Past is in the past.
Yeah.
No more.
Let's play cricket, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or maybe soccer. I prefer soccer.
So you think we should move far away from what happened in 1947?
So just forget it.
It's important to, you know, remember it and try to make sure that something similar doesn't happen in the future. But in terms of harboring, like, you know, the resentment and the feelings of, you know, enemy, like, you know, Hindus versus Muslims, there's no need for that anymore.
How about a lot of people don't even know what happened in 1947? See, you 3 happen to know about it because you are a history, your grandfather, and you were raised in Pakistan. A lot of people don't even know about this. Do you think they should know, or they should not be bothered by it, what happened?
I think they should know, because I mean, they should be informated about what happened. You should know what happened, how you came here, like what your grandfathers, your grandparents did for you. That's why you're sitting at. So I think it would be really helpful for them to know.
And yeah, in addition to that, I don't even think it's an issue that should be, limited to, Indians or Pakistanis. I think history in general has so many lessons to it, right? Like every student in America in high school learns about American history, right? Like American independence from the British, because there's a lot of, culture, a lot of history, a lot of lessons that apply to modern times that they can get from that. And it's the same thing with Indian independence and with Pakistani independence. And this is a big partition, is a big case study that has a lot to do with human psychology, how people react to crisis, how political leaders can be more transparent or more organized, as you were saying before, to plan out and not just spring things on people, because then there's a lot more chaos and a lot more uncertainty that can happen.
So you say it's a human psychology, how our brain is fed with the information.
Yeah, and a lot
Especially
of other
by the
things
media.
as well.
The media.
The media.
You think media is to
Yeah,
be blamed?
every 14 August I see in the news channels, they have like some anchors from India, some from Pakistan. They always argue. They're fighting, like they're shouting. Some of them are sweating at each other. Why? And why do we have to argue about something that has already happened? So what they should instead they should do, like they should just forget it, talk nice things, and then just forget and move forward. But no, they're still arguing about what happened. No, you were wrong. No, they say you were wrong. So what this shouldn't happen. And this is only done by the media. And when Pakistanis see that, they get angry. Like, yes, they're wrong. And when Indians see that, so the hatred is going. We should try to just decrease it, but
And
no.
yeah, that's a problem that kind of occurs with media in general in terms of, if they chose to just get, people who
Yeah.
can get along and talk nice and compromise and like everything's great, that's not as sensational. That's not as appealing. People, are attracted to these like big, extreme argument type of situations. And so we really need to somehow find a way to shift away from that while also, having people be interested in the news that's going on.
I'm very happy to know that the young generation thinks that way. I also think that way too. Like earlier we were talking, I don't have a religion. Okay, my religion is humanity. If you are a good person, you are a good person. It doesn't matter you are a Hindu or Muslim. If you are bad, you are bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, this is how I feel. And I'm glad that you are feeling that way. But on the other hand, a lot of the young people today, even living in America, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How they getting so brainwashed and going the wrong path?
I think it starts from the house. I think a lot of the parents, because in the beginning they have a lot of control. It's going back to what I said earlier. I think we're the third generation now. Our grandparents witnessed everything that happened. They told our parents, "Hey, look, this is what the Hindus did, or this is what the Muslims did. They killed us, and they did that," and our parents, some parents took that very seriously, and they told some kids that. Whereas other parents, I think the majority of parents, I think over time they've come to realize, what, both sides committed mistakes, and there's no reason to tell our kids, because hey, look, you're here, now you're technically Americans. Who's gonna go back and live over there? You're gonna die here. That's it. No need to build that house in Karachi or Delhi or whatever. Build a house here.
Yeah, to expand on that idea, I think in the past, it was very, sort of the stories you heard from your family and from older generations was really the only way of getting informed. Whereas nowadays, and I think this is perhaps the greatest tool that the younger generation will be able to use in order to maybe, not fall into the same traps that previous generations did, education, right?
Yeah.
Learning about history in school, but also having the internet as this like massive free database that, if someone's curious or someone's interested in how the partition of India went, they can Google it, they can look at the Wikipedia page, they could look at, more in-depth sources, and they can really find, like you did, a lot of historical records where they can realize like, oh wow, my family said that the Pakistanis just killed the Hindus, but actually I read here that it happens so much on both sides, and by getting by getting more informed, people will really be able to form more sophisticated and more accurate conclusions.
Before August 1947, India was a one big country, and on the map of the world there was no Pakistan. But in 1947, August 14th, Pakistan became another country. But during that partition, so many people were killed. 1.5 million people estimated they were killed, raped, bothered, disturbed, mutilated. 15 million immigrants. It is called the mass migration. Forcefully happened between India and so-called Pakistan now. During that time, so many people were uprooted. They were all scared. They did not know what to do, where to go, and they were also surprised. All of a sudden, what happened? People who were neighbors, people who were friends, and all of a sudden, people killing people and looting. What happened that time? I'm here to talk with 3 young people who did not witness this thing. Thank God they did not witness this, but their parents or maybe grandparents have witnessed that. So we are going to talk to them today. What is their take on it? What do they think about it as young people? Hello everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Introduce yourself please.
Well, my name is Musawir Khan, and I just moved to New York like 6 months ago. I came from Pakistan.
My name is Akash Wasil. I've lived on Long Island my whole life. My parents were born in India though.
My name is Muhammad Talha Sheikh. I live in Long Island. I was born here.
So we have interesting people here. And by the way, Akash, I believe you have written a book with your grandfather.
Yes.
Which is called Beyond Milestone.
Beyond Milestones. And one of the most interesting things is that my grandfather witnessed the partition, and we discussed that in the book, and that's kind of how I learned a lot about it.
Tell me a little bit more about it. What did he tell you what happened that time?
So he had a lot of friends growing up that were Pakistani and a lot that were Hindu and Muslim, and so they interacted, they were in the same neighborhood as he was growing up. But then when the partition happened, that all erupted. And one of the most memorable stories he told me about was his cousin's best friend was a Muslim, and when partition happened, his cousin, who was his cousin's friend, the Muslim, came to their house and he wanted refuge because there were riots going on in the streets. And my grandfather's cousin turned him away, and he was actually, the friend was killed that day. And it was just shocking for me to hear about that, and same for my grandfather at the time, why all of a sudden, because of these religious and political differences, these lifelong friendships just shattered.
So you heard from this from your grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, he's a friend of mine. His name is Surendra Mitra. And I feel that you are lucky that he wrote this book with you, or you wrote the book with him. Either
very
way.
lucky, yeah.
And he described some things also in the 1947, what happened, some of the incidents in this book.
Yeah, of course. Overall, I mean, he summarizes it, historically, the hundreds of thousands of people that were killed, the 10 million plus that were displaced. And then he highlights, his personal reaction to it as, a child growing up in that environment, how he had to, react with all this suffering and cope.
So you came to know all about this from your grandfather.
Mostly, yeah. I was actually really surprised, after hearing about it, it's such a big event, that it's not more talked about, say, in high school classes or in history. It's sort of just overlooked. It's yeah, and then India got its independence, but there's so much surrounding it that I uncovered thanks to my grandfather.
We will come back to that. How do you know about it? And what do you know about it?
I've been reading to know about this since I was in the first grade and been studying about it. So for high school, we were only reading in books what happened that day. We only discussed what actually happened for the independence. We only studied about what Pakistan had to go through and what the Pakistani people had to go through. We never studied from the Indian side, what their thoughts were and what they think about what happened. And I wish reading something is different from experiencing something. We weren't even born at that time. We only read about it, we only see it. So I wish I knew what actually happened and what was basically idea. Why did they separate it? What was the reason? It was a really good movement. If you take out all the killings and all the deaths, why did that have to happen? So
we will come back to that also.
Yeah.
We will discuss in the program why it happened, How about you?
Well, I'm a history buff. I read everything about history and all that. So I read a lot of books. That's how I mostly learned about the partition. And my family's Pakistani. My grandfather is one of the people who took part in the Pakistan movement. So I've learned through my uncles and through history, reading up more and more about it.
Is there a blame game in this when you hear, do they say, oh, Indians
course,
did this? There's a blame game. Do you also hear that from your grandfather that Pakistanis did?
Not so much from my grandfather, but he talks about how a lot of people, around him at the time were very much, blaming the other side.
How about you?
You know what? I've learned the Pakistani perspective, and it's that. But now, when I read the history books and everything, it's both sides were to blame. What happened there wasn't fair to either side, and you can't blame one side or the other. Both sides are equally responsible for what happened. The killing was a consequence of both sides doing really bad things that shouldn't have.
Let me ask you, would you kill your friend if you
Never.
disagree with him?
Never, ever.
You sure?
Yeah, 100% sure.
How about you?
I don't think I would either. But then again, if you would ask these people at that time period, like,
Yeah.
the day before partition happened, I'm sure they would say the same thing. So, but yeah, I don't think I would.
Would you kill a friend?
No, never.
You won't.
Never, ever.
Are you guys sure?
Positive.
Yeah.
Look at me and then tell me, are you sure?
Yeah.
I just met you and I wouldn't kill you.
I'd like to share one thing. I also did not witness this. But my father, who was born in Pakistan and then moved to India, and he told me these stories. I also want to share with you the part 1 of this show we did. We had people who were born in India, moved to Pakistan, people who were born in Pakistan and they moved there. And their perspective is the same as you young generation wants to know why it happened. And they also feel it should not have happened. What do you feel?
For me, I think why it happened because lack of education maybe. People didn't know what was right and what was wrong at that time. Misunderstanding from both sides, not from one side, misunderstanding from both sides. Muslims used to think they are bad against them and the Hindus used to think they are bad. So a lot of misunderstandings, lack of education, lack of information. I think that's the reason that it happened. And a lot of political reasons too, the politicians framing themselves and they didn't think about the people. They just, fed their minds with useless information and stuff and, trying to create the hatred in their hearts. And I think that's the reason.
So you think it was a power game by political leaders?
And lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
What do you think, Akash?
I agree to some extent, in the sense that a lot of ordinary people probably didn't understand the whole situation. In fact, I don't think really anyone at the time really fully understood everything that was going on. And for people who weren't really that knowledgeable or educated about the situation, all that has to happen is they lose a loved one, right? Or someone in their family or their friend circle gets harmed or is in danger. And then they sort of get this animosity towards the other side. And the other side has, a very similar perspective, someone in an Indian family loses a loved one to a Pakistani riot, and then vice versa. And so there's all this tension being created because the only thing that people do know is this other side, killed someone close to me or even, attacked me. And then that just breeds more revenge, more animosity type of feelings.
What do you think?
Well, I agree and I disagree. I think the top political leaders at the time were definitely very sincere to the whole cause. What they wanted to do was very sincere, but at the lower level that wasn't translated. And you know what? Unfortunately, people died as a result. Should not have happened. Should have been more orderly. But we can sit here now, 68 years later, and say that. But who knows at the time what was the right thing to do? Even the British, they messed up a lot.
So you want to blame British people for this?
Well, the independence, if you read the history books, it should have happened a year later. It should not have happened in August 14th or 15th, 1947. In fact, at the time of the partition, you didn't even know the boundaries of India or Pakistan. Some people thought they would be in India, but the next day they woke up, they were in Pakistan. So, and vice versa. So a lot of mismanagement on both ends, and actually on three ends, the British, the Pakistanis, and the Indians, everyone messed up.
So according to you guys, we all are to be blamed for.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone is to be blamed
Yeah.
for.
There's no like right side here.
No.
It's just a lot of miscommunication.
Do you wish it should never have happened?
I do.
Well, I think that independence obviously was a very happy and very important step. Like obviously, you know, there was a lot of good that came from this, you know, and 2 countries emerged and 3 if we include Bangladesh now. But the killings obviously were entirely unjustified.
I agree. The killings were entirely unjustified, but I do support the idea of the partition on peaceful grounds, of course.
Just an idea I want to throw. What do you think would have happened if Pakistan was not there? It was one country, just like the way before 1947, and we were all living together.
Well, it would have been fantastic. Like, I mean, if it was like at this time, Pakistan and India, there's so much, you know, talented people from both countries. And if it was the same country, we would have been competing with a country like America or maybe something else. So I wish it didn't happen like this, and we would have been together, like living in harmony and peace. That would be something, you know, amazing. We would have the same movies, same cricket team. I would have loved to see like our movies being so like accepted globally, and like Virat Kohli and Shahid Afridi would be playing
You
the
are
same
a
team.
movie buff, that's why you're
No, not that, not
And
that.
cricket.
Lots of other things, lots and lots of other things. Like there should have been a way like to live in one place. Like here in America, have you ever seen like Pakistan-Indian fight? No, I've never. It's been 6 months, and Indians so care about the Pakistanis and vice versa. But why that time? Why didn't it care at that time? It should have happened at that time. Like
I agree with you. India and Pakistan do have cricket, movies, and a lot more in common. And I agree with you, all of you, whether it should not have happened or it should not have happened. We'll be brave. We'll be right back after the break. We are back after the break, talking to these 3 young, dynamite, I would say dynamite people from India and Pakistani both. And as I said, I could not tell who's from where by looking at them unless they tell me their names, not even with the names. But anyway, we are back here. I want to ask you a question. Do you celebrate Independence Day?
of course I do. Like back in Pakistan, I used to celebrate with my friends. Like we used to, like it respected our national anthem. We used to, you know, have flags hang up everywhere. But here in New York, it will be my first Independence Day.
Right.
So let's see what happens. I'll probably, you know, celebrate like standing in front of the national anthem while hearing to, and that's it. Because, you know, Independence Day, like it's a very special feeling for every countryman. Like you feel really proud for that. So let's see what happens on 14 August.
How about you?
Yeah, the Indian and the Pakistani communities on Long Island, and I'm sure in the city as well, are just very strong, and there are a lot of parades that occur that my family and I have went to once or twice. And generally, I think, you know, for me personally, it's more of just sort of like me and my family like celebrating and like kind of understanding their history and their stories that they can tell. But there are like big events, there are small events, so. Yeah.
What do you do?
Oh, I love Pakistani Independence Day. I usually go out into the city. There's a parade that we have, and then out on Long Island. Anytime I go to Pakistan over the summer, I usually make sure that we decorate my grandfather's house with all the flags, little flags, small flags. I think it's a very special event.
And you also like that a lot of pretty girls come to these.
Beautiful.
You forgot to mention that, huh?
Yeah,
A lot of beautiful girls come to that
and they
parade
look
also.
beautiful in green and white.
Are my parents watching?
No, we just go for the
No, no.
independence and for
So,
the.
beside the joking, if you would have lost your father, just assume, if during that partition, while Indians were moving to Pakistan or Pakistan people were moving to India, if you would have lost your father on August 14th or 15th, or during that time you saw their dead body, what would be your feeling?
I would have felt terrible. I mean, heartbreaking. Who wants to lose their father, especially their father? And I feel bad for the people who actually lost their loved ones. And it would have been a terrible feeling for the rest of their lives. And a lot of people, you know, suffered that. They saw that. losing their own parents, their mothers, their fathers, brothers, sisters. I mean, what's worse than that?
How about you guys?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, like, you know, looking back and making this a hypothetical, it's, you know, ideally I want to say I would be able to understand, or, you know, I would be very sad, I'd be very upset, but I wouldn't, you know, want to harbor any like animosity. But in the moment, if it actually happened, I'm sure I'd not only be sad, but also really angry, really like wanting someone to pay for this. You know, I would not be able to understand why this happened, and I would think that this is, you know, it would be very easy to fall under the sort of rhetoric that it's, you know, their fault, they're the enemy, they did this to you, so now you should fight back for your family. And obviously, like, I don't want to think I would have done that, but in that emotional turmoil, who knows what people are willing to believe.
What do you think?
I totally agree with him. I think I would be caught up. You know, it's easy for me to sit here now say, no, I wouldn't have done anything. But you know what? Probably if I was there, yeah, you know, who knows? Who knows? But I can tell you this much: I don't think it would be pretty what I would do. I think, but that's part of being human, I guess. You know, we make mistakes where we get angry, but we should control our anger.
You know, during that time, a lot of people lost their loved ones. For them, it's not the independence. They cursed that day. You know, I would do too. And yeah, that's kind of a, yeah, I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I don't know myself, what will I do? Because, you know, in the previous show, we have met people, you know, we spoke to, and they spoke about that, how they lost their loved ones. And they don't celebrate. Those people do not celebrate Independence Day. Do you, do you wish Independence Day to your Indian friends now?
I will definitely. Because like since coming to New York, I've made a lot of Indian friends. I just made him like an hour ago. So, and they've been really nice. So of course I will do. And it's a really good feeling.
How about you?
I agree. I think Independence Day is totally separate. We can agree to disagree, but there's some days that are just special. And you know what? We should all celebrate together as much as we can.
So what do you think we should celebrate independence? What? What does it mean? That we got independence from British people, or what?
Well, the fact that people, like at that time, what the Pakistani people wanted, not the Pakistan wasn't that time, but the people they wanted a separate country for themselves, so they could like live in a separate place, not like being together with all the people. For them, that's the independence, and for them we should celebrate like they got a separate country for themselves. You see, so they could live by their own ways, whatever they want to do. But it would have happened also if they were together. So like for the sake of all the sacrifices made, for all the lives that were lost, I think we should celebrate that for them, like they did this for us. Like so in their memory, like in their love, we should celebrate the Independence Day. What they did for us, like we are sitting here.
Would you have felt the same way if you were living in Pakistan?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice to know.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, for Pakistanis, I think it's a little bit different. You get your own separate homeland. For the Indian, it's more, I feel like you're that's it. You're done with the British. The British are gone. Yeah. You're in charge of your everything that you have in India or Pakistan. That's it. You're in charge of that. You don't have to worry about paying taxes to the crown or anything. So you know what? We're able to shape our own destinies, both in India and Pakistan, and we don't have someone sitting in London deciding what to do for us.
You know, during that time, Hindus killed Muslims, Muslims killed Hindus. At the same time, Hindus saved Muslims, Muslims saved Hindus. If we look at that equation, that means it was not about Hindu and Muslim. It was something personal. What do you think about that, though?
Well, as I said earlier, like lots of like people were feeding their brains with wrong information, and I think that's what happened. Like if you feed someone, like if you make them angry, make them burn their hearts about all the stuff they say, so of course people get angry. And I told you, lack of education and information at that time, that's what forced them to do such a thing. Like you said, some people were saving them and some people were killing them, so the people who were killing them, of course, had something else in their brains, fed by people.
That means each one of us have the power to choose to do the right thing
Of course.
or wrong thing.
Yeah.
हम सब के अंदर वो ताकत है ना.
जी बिल्कुल
हम
बिल्कुल.
गलत भी कर सकते हैं और ठीक भी कर सकते हैं. Correct?
Yeah. And sometimes it's harder to draw those lines of right and wrong, but I do think that different people reacted to this situation differently, and when there's a situation of so much pressure and so much crisis, people can really rise to be very moral, very forgiving, or they can fall into the more common but more negative reaction.
Why do you think the religion have such an impact on people that people are willing to kill people?
It's a very delicate thing. I mean, religion, everyone is takes it really seriously. Even though they're not religious, they'll stick to religion very seriously. And if you mock them at the religion, they get angry because they think it's very special. Of course, it's really special, but I think it should remain personal. Only for a human, if he's religious, he should keep it to himself. He shouldn't trouble anyone else just because he disagrees with him.
Yeah. And for some people, religion is a major part of their identity, their moral structure, and they feel like, if someone goes against it, they're, wrong and they need to be punished. And a lot of the times in certain, extreme religious communities, if someone disrespects the religion, the god or the gods want you to fight back and fight for the religion. And I think, I agree exactly with what he said in terms of how religion really ought to be, or it could be a lot better for the world if religion was more of a personal thing, and it didn't require people to really, have to harm or have to try to convince other people or have to try to change their own customs. And it's just, I'll be this religion, you'll be that religion, and we'll live together.
So will I be right that people did not kill because of the religion or the politics? You are saying they killed, it was the wrong information fed to people.
Well,
And some people chose to do that.